AIM-listed Equals Group, formerly FairFX, helps consumers and businesses manage money movements. Its reach is through a cloud-based payments platform that engages with a range of currencies and countries. In its recently released full-year trading update, it saw a near 20% rise in revenues, with the second half easily exceeding the first 6 months of the year. Ian Strafford-Taylor is co-founder and chief executive. He joins us now. Ian, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you. We come at a time when we've had this recent release, but I want to begin actually in a couple of months earlier, because you changed the name from FairFX, which I know a lot of people in the market knew and loved, but Equals Group. Why did you do the move?
I think it was almost the culmination of something we set in train 2 years earlier, in terms of we could see a lot of competition in our traditional heartland, which was a retail or consumer-led travel card, travel money combined with foreign exchange, and pivoted the business towards B2B or business consumers. And a lot of what we do with business customers is not FX at all. So the split of our revenue between FX and non-FX has been moving more and more towards non-FX. And we're more of a B2B business than we were a retail business. And so changing the name for, if you're calling up a corporate and we've got an expense solution which is largely UK based and you're called FairFX, they put the phone down. And so we've not torched FairFX as a brand. We still have FairFX cards and there's a lot of brand equity in it. But moving the business in the eyes of investors and the general public away from that heritage was an important thing to do. And Equals, if you think about it, how many companies in the world actually have a dictionary-based name and also a logo that's universal, everyone recognises that throughout the planet. So actually it's something to aspire and fill. That brand is a fantastic brand when we put it to work. So that was the logic.
So just outline exactly how you make your money as well. Before we get into the details of the recent release, which I want to focus in on just a minute, where is the money made from engaging with a client to getting it onto the profit and loss?
And it varies by product. So clearly if we're doing foreign exchange related stuff, which is still a lot of what we do, we make money from the spread in terms of what we pay to change money compared to what we charge the customer. So that's a key part of what we do. There's also, which is too complicated to explain, but a thing called interchange. So every time a card is used that has our name on it, we earn something which the merchant, where it is used, pays. That's called interchange. So we earn that, and as we've improved our supply chain, we earn more of it. We have a current account-based banking platform, which we earn fees. And we also have various payments interfaces where we will charge per payment made, not necessarily an FX spread. So it's a broader church than it was. If you'd asked me the same question 2 years ago, FairFX, I'd have said FX.
So what's different then between you? What's your USP, I suppose? What's different between you and what one might regard as the services provided by a bank?
We're better. So I think maybe what's different to us, A, with where we were, and B, to maybe other FX businesses, if you want to think of it that way, and then the banks. So what we've assembled over the course of the last couple of the years is, so we have fantastic platforms for foreign exchange. This is a given. We've allied that to amazing connectivity with various payments platforms. So we announced a year ago we were direct members of Faster Payments. Faster Payments is the thing we all use to wire money that goes instantly 24/7, 365 compared to BACS, which takes a day or two, right? And I actually thought the stock would go up that day. Maybe you have it on the chart. I can see on your screen. The stock went down because, so what? But actually what we have now, what the USP is that we can marry FX or international payments capability with domestic clearance, bank-grade clearance, such that it's seamless for a corporate if they want to move foreign money in, change to sterling and wire it out here, or vice versa. We have all the platforms to do that, either directly with us or white labelled for them.
Okay, well let's bring up the chart of Equals Group. Actually, we were talking before we went into the interview, talking about this latest drop here, and this coincided with the release of the earnings, which I want to get onto. This takes us back to levels not seen since March 2017. I said you saw a near 20% rise in revenues.
Yeah.
Second half easily, quoting you, easily exceeding the first 6 months of the year. What happened, do you think, that the market didn't like? Because I couldn't find an awful lot in the release that stirred me into believing this wasn't a company I wanted back.
I think when you look in absolute terms, our performance is fantastic. When you look compared to what the market was expecting, or the numbers that are out in the market, from the analysts, we were a bit shy. We're only, 33 million revenue was the number. We're about 31.5. It's not really that far off. And actually, to the extent we missed on revenue, it was where we wanted to miss on the B2C side, not on B2B. The B2B growth was phenomenal. And also on the EBITDA, we're shy of that, but partly that's because small miss in revenue, that will flow down. Also, that move from B2C to B2B doesn't happen without investment, and we've done that investment now. So, we have strong prospects going forward, but it was that kind of shock, I think. And listen, I'm as upset as anyone as a shareholder where we are now, but what I can see is that this is, not really fair reflection of what the business is doing. As you say, 20% growth in revenue and 30% growth in EBITDA is not to be sniffed at.
Yeah. The back end of the year was the better performing half. Is that a cyclical thing that you experience every year, or is that unique to this year because of your focusing now on a different area of the market?
No, it should. If we're still growing, it should always be that way, I guess. Right. There is some cyclicality in the retail side of the business, but as we just discussed, that's less important in terms of the overall picture going forwards. Now it'll be coronavirus, and before it was Brexit. There's generally something. Just on the Brexit point, though, and every time there's been an election or an event, we generally are very busy around it, because what happens is businesses and individuals put off buying their currency if they can. They defer this. I'll wait until. And so it wasn't. At the end of last year, we had the general election. It was a clear result. Clearly, we were very busy then, but we couldn't know for sure how busy we'd be or what we'd make in December until it was all over. That's why, did I think we'd miss? I thought we might just about get there on revenue. We were a bit shy, but not massively.
Does Brexit affect you at all in terms of your operations? There's a lot of discussions over the last few days about what sort of deal we're going to end up with, Canada, Norway, whatever. But it certainly seems like at least the European Court of Justice clearly is going to want to have full control over the European market, which actually potentially does change things for you, doesn't it, when you're a cross-border company which engages presumably with people on the continent?
It changes it in some ways, but not as much as you'd think, in that up to now we've been very much UK dominated in terms of the customers that we sign up, both retail and businesses. And to the extent we need to wire money into Europe, the SEPA gateway will still be open. That's all covered. The big clearing banks have already covered all of that, so we're okay. Clearly, we'd like to be signing up businesses in Europe also as customers of ours directly, but we haven't done a lot of that yet. So we'll see how it ends up. We have the possibility to expand our operation in Ireland. We have a company there, so we can do all of that quickly, but there's no point in incurring the costs and overhead of doing that until we get a clearer picture of what's going to spin out. So we have robust plans in place. I'm not complacent, but I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. Just going back to the spread now between corporate and the consumer, the retail side. What is this in terms of your revenue? What is the major part now?
We crossed that Rubicon in 2019. 52% of the revenue came from the corporate side versus 48%, and the year before it was more like 65-35, that sort of order of magnitude. And our turnover for 2019 was 71% from corporates, and that tends to give an early indicator of the direction of travel. So for 2020, it's going to be strongly B2B more than B2C.
And I think 2020, you're talking about expansion is when I saw that word in there. Is that going to be costly? I've got to ask that because those that are in the stock want to know just what's going to go out the door in terms of money.
No, absolutely.
To get to where you want to be.
Well, there's two. Expanding what we already do in the UK, no, we don't have to add loads of costs. We've incurred plenty of cost and reinvestment and new platforms, new tech and this, that, the other. And in fact, in the RNS, we stated that we'd be shifting about £1 million of cost out of the business. I think we can outperform that between, as I'm sat here now. We are also, we have the ability now to sell our wares in the USA. We have sensible numbers in our plan for doing that. That's not going to incur massive amounts of cost, but there is some investment there. Before that is a EBITDA positive event. We're assuming that's next year rather than this, but we're not going to sort of do a crazy expansion with a Park Avenue office or anything mad like that.
Yeah.
So we have cautious plans for that. I'm well aware that we've invested quite a lot over the last couple of years to do this switch and create this connectivity, and I want to be pushing down that overhead this year and next.
Just briefly going back to the share price, we can bring it up again. We can show 45.3 pence. What are people buying into at these levels? I'm thinking about your plans for expansion, your targets, your outlook, where you see the business going. How much of that is represented at 45 on the market?
It's massively underrepresented in my personal opinion. I would say that, wouldn't I? But if you think...
Well, I think there's a material calculation to some degree, isn't it? Because, that gives you a value of the business. If you're talking about income which is going to expand at a certain rate, presumably that would give some sort of value in terms of maths.
Well, we're looking at roughly just shy of 10 million EBITDA for 2019. We have a growth of that number of another 30% in for this year. So
what's your market cap?
These levels, about 80 million. So, it's trading very low in terms of an earnings multiple, which I think investors, ultimately, that's what they look at. We'll be cash positive this year, so we'll be so you've got a cash generative, high growth business, decent profits. And remember, most payments business don't make profits. We do. That is also growing at pace. Then I think if we were coming to market now, with the numbers that we have, we'd be significantly north of this particular share price.
Yes. Finally, what should we be watching out for 2020 to make sure that you're on target for where you want to be?
Well, I think if part of the lessons of the last couple of weeks, which has obviously been relatively painful for me personally in terms of, there's some unhappy people out there, has been we can and should and will improve our external communications in terms of clarity, transparency, what's going on, make the numbers easier to understand. I mean, we've kind of changed as a business over the course of the last 2 years, so we couldn't not report what we were doing on the retail side, even though it was becoming less important. And I think we can reset. We've got a new CFO that we appointed towards the end of last year who's going to make the reporting far more granular and easy to understand. I think that will help investors get a clearer picture of what's going on.
And do you think there'll be any need to make any statement about coronavirus? Do you think that's going to impact your business?
I think it'll affect travel, so the travel money side of it, that's less material for us than it was. To the extent it affects international business, I mean, actually there's one minor thing. So for instance, we issue plastic, as you know, travel cards and the corporate cards, that inside them have little antennas because, for tap to pay. They come from China. It could be there's supply chain issues, not just for us, but for the wider world. So we just have to see how it plays out. If international trade is affected, there will be some impact on us, but as we sit here now, I'm not seeing it.
No. Well, watch this space. In the meantime, thanks so much indeed for joining us. Interesting story. FairFX turned into Equals Group the back end of last year, and that's the co-founder and chief executive, Ian Strafford-Taylor.